Hey, welcome to the channel, everybody. Today we are talking about Netflix's newest hit, Baby Reindeer. This is a television series that actually released a couple weeks ago, and I had no plans on checking it out or even talking about it on the channel, but as it started to pick up buzz and became the #1 most popular show on Netflix in America, I thought, you know what? Let's give this a watch. Let's see what I think. And after watching this show, I knew I had to talk about it. Baby Reindeer is a true story from the real-life experiences of Richard Gadd. Dealing with a female stalker, a man is forced to face a dark, buried trauma. When I tell you that this is one of the most devastating series that I've watched in a long time, that's an understatement. I really mean that. There's a lot to unpack with this show. There was a lot that really surprised me. It does a great job of subverting your expectations, because on the surface it's presented as one thing about this man who is living his everyday life, and he comes in contact with a woman who turns out to be a very mentally ill individual who begins to stalk him and prey on his everyday life. And through the first few episodes of the show, that is the main focus of it. We get to learn their connection, how they first met, and their interactions between each other, and how that obsession with her character began to grow and quickly turn into something much more out of control than he ever would have hoped for. This is told through a series of very awkward encounters, as well as countless emails that she sends him, and constant attempts to try to build this identity for herself that is very misleading. I'm a big fan of the way that the story was constructed. Richard Gadd wrote the script for this. He's also starring in it. He also narrates the entire show, and it's from, like I said, his own life experiences. The way it weaves through these moments of his encounters with his stalker, as well as moments to where he's sitting there processing his own thoughts. Just in terms of being a scripted show, this would have been a very strong outing. There are a lot of things to love here. The character dynamics are very strong. The editing is sharp. It's got a dark sense of humor to it, but it can also be very emotionally taxing. But when you throw in the aspect that this is all true experiences from Richard Gadd that he's had in his life, that makes it all the more terrifying and suspenseful, and makes you that much more invested as to what's going on, because you want to see what the outcome is going to be. It's clear that he is a very torn individual who's had a lot of very rough past life experiences and traumas that he's had to deal with. He's very unsure of himself, and the time of his life that this story is set around, he's questioning a lot of things because of past experiences he's had, as well as this new person who has come into his life and really just flipped it entirely upside down. He seems like an individual who can just never catch a break, and because of that, he's constantly on his toes. He's never comfortable with anything going on, and because he's somebody who is so uncertain of himself, when the stalker first comes in the picture and she's showering him with these compliments and these overly enthusiastic gestures, you can tell that she's very into him and she wants to be a part of his life. As much as he's scared of that, as much as he's worried because he knows that this is easily going to turn into a very bad thing, he can see the patterns, he can see all of the red flags. He still gives into it because he's such an empathetic person, and at the same time, he feels like she is able to pour into him in a way that he has not received in a long time. He becomes blinded by the temporary satisfaction that he received from her outpouring of love and affection. But as things go on, it continues to get darker and deeper, and things quickly spiral out of control, and it gets to a point where it feels like there's no return. I have to give a lot of credit to Jessica Gunning, who plays Martha, his stalker in the show, for increasingly amping up the hysteria and the ridiculousness and the obsession of her character. She comes off early on as somebody who is very genuine and sweet and well-intentioned, and while she may be a little bit too direct, a little too forward, she means the best. But as you learn more about her character, it's quickly obvious that she's got a lot more going on, and she is not a stable person whatsoever. And when those boundaries are crossed, she lets loose and becomes an absolute maniac. And while the overarching idea of this entire series is about that main encounter between Richard Gadd's character and his stalker, there is a lot more to unpack here. Especially when you get to about episode 4, things really take a turn. You start to learn about his character before these events took place. You get a peek behind this barrier that he's put up, and you get a look into his past, and you see that now everything that's going on with his stalker is almost him reverting to bad habits and these traumatic experiences that he's already had before. The show deals with sexual assault in a very violent nature, as well as heavy drug abuse. It's clear that this guy did not have an easy life, and he went through a lot of different things, and it seemed like it was all as a result of him trying to chase after this dream and having these people come into his life that would feed into his ideas that he had for his life and for his career. And he was willing to follow them blindly, no matter what they might put him through in the process. At times, it can be very frustrating to watch his character and follow along with him, because he can go to the deepest, darkest depths of despair and then somehow climb his way back up again and find redemption and find purpose once more, only to revert back to those bad habits. He's not a flawless character. He makes some of the worst decisions that only do him harm in the end. He's easily manipulated and taken advantage of. But deep down inside of him, he's programmed to keep giving these people who don't deserve a second chance multiple chances for redemption, because he is such an empathetic person that he wishes the best for everyone. I'm honestly not that familiar with Richard Gadd's work prior to this series, but from what I've seen here, he is a very talented individual. And after everything he's been through, I'm glad that he was finally able to make it to the other side and finally able to build up enough strength to tell his story and to live out his life in a positive way. His performance here was very layered. There are moments to where he is super endearing and a charming character, and he's got a great sense of humor and a great heart to him, and he's just filled with joy, and he's got a very bubbly personality. But as things start to progress, he becomes more and more emotionally drained, and with that comes a very heartbreaking performance. There's a moment in episode 6 where he's sitting on a stage and he's supposed to be delivering a comedy act, and instead goes on an entire spiel about every single thing that he's been through and the traumas that have made him into the man that he is at that present moment. It was very devastating to watch, very uncomfortable, but extremely raw and vulnerable. And I think that's what this show does very good. It's able to take a look into the depths of his emotions and really bring to light a bunch of disturbing things that would be hard for anybody to come to terms with, to admit, to confess to anyone. And in that moment, it didn't feel like I was watching a television series. It looked like I was watching someone genuinely cry for help. But overall, I was beyond surprised at what this show turned out to be, the different directions it took, the misdirections, all of the unexpected turns. As I mentioned, there was a shift midway through that completely threw me off guard, but I think it was for the betterment of the story, because I was already liking the show up to that point. But what it morphed into was that much more engaging, that much more disturbing and hard to watch, but well written and well executed. This has been a great year for television so far, but I definitely think this stands among the ranks as one of the best shows of the year. And if you've heard about this show before and were debating whether or not to jump into it, or if this is the first time you've ever heard of it, I would strongly recommend, if you can handle the subject matter, watching it and giving it a chance, because I seriously think that there is a lot of great stuff in this show. But it's also one I don't think I could ever watch again, just because of how disturbing it really is. But guys, those are my quick thoughts on Baby Reindeer. So as always, make sure to comment down below. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on the show if you've checked it out. Also, if you would, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, I'll see y'all later. Peace out.